I just want to know what you love about Faneuil Hall.
Well, it's part of the Freedom Trail, and my wife's crazy about history, being a history teacher.
I think it's very alive.
At the clam chowder.
You know what I like? I just like the architecture.
We went to this beautiful street with all like the different stuff to look at, to buy, all this art.
Oh, I live 3 blocks away and I love it.
All the stores are different, so it's a nice place to walk around too.
Hi, I'm Joyce Kulhawick and welcome to Boston's historic Faneuil Hall Marketplace. It's home to around 90 stores and restaurants, and this year is celebrating its 270th anniversary. Faneuil Hall is always on the must-see list if you're a visitor, but how many of you know how it got here and why it is still America's first and longest operating shopping center? Let's take a trip back in time and watch your step, because the waterfront starts right over there.
Peter Faneuil was one of those general merchants that Boston was so filled with. Boston, of course, was an emporium for the Atlantic world, where ships were going everywhere in the empire. Peter Faneuil was a generous man, and then, in 1740, he offered to give as a gift to the town of Boston a central marketplace. And this hall was opened in 1742. Unfortunately, only about 6 months later, Peter Faneuil died. And so, the people of Boston named this chamber, this building, this cradle of liberty, after him. We ought to think of the Atlantic world as a great pond, and these ships, these merchants, were dancing across in all directions. You could come down here to the marketplace, and you'd find goods from all over the world. Tea from China, sugar from the West Indies, manufactured goods from England, wine from France. When Peter Faneuil made his gift to the town, the condition was that there'd be a market on the first floor and a meeting hall on the second floor. And so they would gather here in the great hall of Faneuil Hall to decide the various issues confronting the town. It was here in Faneuil Hall that they gathered to protest the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Townsend duties, and of course, perhaps most famously of all, the Tea Act.
One of the strongest voices of protest before the American Revolution was Ebenezer McIntosh, co-founder of the Sons of Liberty. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You can call me Captain Mac.
Oh, Captain Mac. Got a first question for you. How did Faneuil Hall come to be called the Cradle of Liberty anyway?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that make it, that earned it that title. There's meetings that occur here for years and years and years, and those meetings are led by people like James Otis and Samuel Adams, and even John Hancock and Dr. Joseph Warren on a number of issues that lead to the path to independence. So they're talking about liberty a lot here.
So, did people gather in a place like this to eat, drink, and make riots?
Well, not necessarily in Faneuil Hall proper, but in a lot of the buildings around it. There's a lot of taverns like the Golden Ball and the Green Dragon Tavern, which is above the Masonic Lodge of St. Andrew down the road. Folks that tend to be affiliated with the Sons of Liberty end up hanging out at taverns like that and talking about what's going on in the day. What's going on in the day is revolutionary action.
So why did Faneuil Hall become that meeting place?
It was an open space more than anything else, and folks can go into it and they can talk openly. It's public meetings.
Exactly how dangerous was it to gather like this?
I personally didn't get in as much trouble as folks like Samuel Adams and John Hancock. Samuel Adams and John Hancock, by the time the Revolutionary War is actually occurring, they're the only two men that are not being offered amnesty by the government. Everyone else gets off scot-free if we just stop, but they're not willing to give up John Hancock and Samuel Adams. Those guys are going to hang.
Right. So people would come to a place like this, they'd sit down, they'd have a drink, and they'd start getting into it.
Yeah, there would be political arguments in various taverns. Actually, just down the road at a coffee house, which is a tavern, where a lot of British soldiers used to spend time. A early revolutionary leader named James Otis went in and picked a fight with a customs official, and they actually got into fisticuffs and started swinging canes at each other. James Otis was actually clubbed in the head, almost died.
Wow.
And this is a major leader of the early revolutionary movement, starting in 1761.
So eat, drink, and revolution.
Eat, drink, and crack skulls.
Captain Mac, nice to meet you. One of Boston's best-kept secrets is right up here on the 4th floor of Faneuil Hall. It is the headquarters of the Ancient and Honourable Artillery Company of Massachusetts, and it is the 3rd oldest chartered military organization in the world.
Well, the Ancient and Honourable Artillery Company are a militia of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We were chartered in 1638 by Governor Winthrop. You've probably seen us on the 4th of July parading, also on Veterans Day at the State House as an honor guard to the governor, as an honor guard for the State of the State speech. We parade on Patriots Day, and we've been doing that every year since 1638 with a little hiatus during that period, 1775 to 1783, when we had a little disagreement with our British friends. When Peter Faneuil gave the building to the city, he wanted a trading area on the 1st floor, a city hall, town hall actually in those days, on the 2nd floor, and the top floor was to be reserved as an armory for the militias of Boston. Over the years, when you have an institution that's, in this case, coming up on 375 years old, you begin to accumulate stuff. Now with the renovation of the building and the new signage, we're not the best kept secret in Boston anymore. More and more people are beginning to discover us, and they like the price of admission, which is, as it always has been, nothing.
By the early 1800s, Boston was growing so fast it was running out of land. So in 1826, the city filled in the waterfront and built Quincy Market.
The 2nd mayor of Boston, Josiah Quincy, looked at this area and thought that it needed to be renewed. And so it was under Mayor Josiah Quincy that the other market buildings were added. The South Market building and the North Market building, and the building in the center as well. Built of granite, a new building material brought here to Boston. And so Faneuil Hall, in the period of Josiah Quincy, became what it had been before and is today, the center of the town of Boston.
Business was booming, but in another 100 years, a very different story would be unfolding. That's coming up next, so don't go away.
Boston Pewter Company sells American-made pewter. We have the largest collection of American-made pewter anywhere in the country. We also sell scrimshaw, which is a 200-year-old art of etching on bone and ivory. Visitors here at Faneuil Hall are looking for local and unique gifts, and that's what we offer here at Boston Pewter Company.